නවපෑ සබන් සහ ක්‍රීම් ජාත්‍යන්තර ළමා රෝග පිළිබඳ විශේෂඥයන් විසින් සායනිකව තහවුරු කරලා තියෙන්නේ.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Sunday the 12th of February 2023. Racing rescuers. The missing Sri Lankan national in Turkey confirmed dead. Body of the 64-year-old found under the rubble as search operations continue, and death toll from the Turkey-Syria earthquakes exceed 28,000. Temporary halt. Health Ministry advises all government hospitals to delay non-essential surgeries, but essentials to continue as usual. Political promises. While Samagi Janabalawegya leader promises to deliver justice to the victims of Easter attacks, the National People's Power plans to rewrite history on the 9th of March, and Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna says they're confident in claiming a historic victory. Expansion plans. Jaffna International Airport to attract more passengers with increased flight operations.
They have scheduled flights here, 4 flights per week. I was told that in time to come, there will be 7 flights per week from Alliance Air.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Indivadi Amwata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
උසස් පෙළට පසු කොලිෆයි වෙමු ඉහළට යමු ජය අරගමු ප්‍රොමෝෂන් එකට ඊළඟ දාගත්තොත් ඩිග්‍රිය ගොඩ
ජාතික කබලි කළමනාකරණ ආයතනය NIPM වෙතින් රාජ්‍ය වගකීම සහ ලෝපිළිගත් උපාධියක් තරුණ ඔබට Be smart, be qualified, be recognized with NIPM ජාතිය වැවිලි සරසවිය.
A warm welcome. We take you straight to your top story tonight, where a catastrophic disaster was reported, and we've been bringing you developments in the past week. Rescuers in Turkey are still engaged in operations 6 days after one of the worst natural disasters that hit parts of Turkey and Syria. The death toll exceeded 28,000 and looked set to rise further. Now the quake ranks as the world's 7th deadliest natural disaster this century, with its toll approaching 31,000 deaths from a quake in neighboring Iran in year 2003. Meanwhile, speaking to AdaDerana English News, Sri Lankan ambassador in Ankara, Hasanthi Urugodawatta, confirmed that the remains of the last Sri Lankan in the area were identified by her daughter earlier today.
Facing questions over his handling of Turkey's most devastating earthquake since 1939, President Tayyip Erdogan promised to restart building within weeks, saying hundreds of thousands of buildings were wrecked. In Syria, the disaster hit hardest in the rebel-held northwest, leaving many homeless for a second time after they were displaced by a decade-old civil war, though the region has received little aid compared to government-held areas. Turkey said about 80,000 people were in hospital, with more than 1 million in temporary shelters. With basic infrastructure in ruins, survivors feared disease. The earthquake has so far killed 24,617 inside Turkey and more than 3,500 in Syria, where tolls have not been updated since Friday. The UNAID chief described the earthquake as the region's worst event in 100 years, predicting that the death toll could at least double. Meanwhile, after several efforts to find her whereabouts, the remains of the last Sri Lankan who was yet to be located were identified by her daughter today. The Sri Lankan woman's Istanbul-based daughter has been working with rescue officials for the past 3 days. Speaking to AdaDerana, the Sri Lankan ambassador in Ankara, Hasanthi Urugodawatta, elaborated on the efforts to locate the Sri Lankan woman's remains.
For past 3 days, her daughter was in the area, and we were coordinating with our honorary consul in Gaziantep as well as the Sri Lankan pastor who is from that area, and they have been working very closely with the embassy and AFAD, and it was with much difficulty that we arranged for debris removal because they are only going to areas where they think there are people. We managed to get some excavating vehicles and debris removing vehicles to the area day before yesterday, and throughout yesterday they were doing that. At one point, debris removal stopped because there were no trucks to take out the debris. Then our Honourable Consul assisted in getting some trucks, but unfortunately this morning the daughter identified the body of her mother. She doesn't wish to share any information about her mother. What we can tell is that this lady who passed away is 64 years old, and she is from Meegahena, Galagidar area, and has moved to Turkey decades ago, and she was married to a Turkish person who has passed away by now. The embassy, together with the Sri Lankan pastor in the area, are trying to work on final rituals about the body. And other 15, they are okay, and then 3 of them we managed to get them to Ankara, and 2 students from Kahraman Marash, close to the epicenter, and the other one was from Sanli, Urfa. And they are now staying in a hotel in Ankara, which belongs to another Honourable Consul of ours. One of them, who has not gone back to Sri Lanka for about 4 years, is now wanting to go home, and we are trying to support his departure to Sri Lanka as well. All the others are okay.
Here at home, the Health Ministry advises all hospitals to delay non-essential surgeries that can be postponed on medical recommendation due to the prevailing shortage of drugs in the country. Minister of Health Kehelia Rambukwala said that all essential surgeries will, however, be performed as usual. Speaking to AdaDerana, the Health Minister added that stocks of anaesthetics essential to perform surgeries will be received by the Ministry within 2 weeks, allowing all surgeries to be performed as usual.
The Sri Lankan Medical Association recently pointed out that out of around 300 essential medicines, stocks of about 160 medicines have depleted to zero level at the Medical Supplies Division of the Ministry of Health. During a recent media briefing, President of the College of Anesthesiologists and Intensivists of Sri Lanka, Dr. Anuma Perera, said most of the essential pharmaceutical drugs used by anesthesiologists, such as anesthetics when performing surgeries, had run out. Dr. Anuma Perera said that there are no painkillers or drugs used for local anesthesia. In this backdrop, the Sri Lankan Medical Association warned that the country's health sector would face a serious crisis within the next few weeks if shortages of medicines, surgical equipment and chemicals used in labs are not made available. Meanwhile, taking this situation into account, a temporary directive was issued by the Minister of Health Kehelia Rambukwala to delay all surgeries that can be postponed on medical recommendation for a short period of time. However, the minister said that essential and urgent surgeries will be performed as usual. Speaking to AdaDerana, Minister Rambukwala confirmed that stocks of anesthetics necessary to perform surgeries will be received by the ministry within the next 2 weeks, and that necessary steps will be taken to distribute them upon receipt.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe today assured that the government will purchase paddy stocks at 100 rupees per kilogram from farmers starting the next week. He made these remarks at a discussion with the farmer community of the Northern Province.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe today attended a harvesting ceremony in Paranthin Jaffna during his visit to the Northern Province. While speaking with the farmer community of the region, the President stated that paddy will be purchased at a guaranteed price of 100 rupees per kilo within the coming week.
සම්මුඛකාරයි බොඩි මෝල්ඩුයි මීඩියම් මෝල් කියනවා 100ට ගන්න. දෙකමනේ 14 නම් අපි ගන්නම් 100ට. 100ට ගන්නවා නම් ඒක 100ට වඩා ගන්න ඕනේ. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් ගන්නේ බිලියන 8යි රුපියල්. මේ සැරේ අපි රුපියල් බිලියන 20කට ගන්නවා. 105ක් 10ක් ආණ්ඩුව ගත්තොත් ඇති. මේ සැරේ 120 පයින්නවා. හොඳයි. මේ අවුරුද්දේ අපිට ඕර ලබා දෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ නිසා අපි හැමතැනම හොඳ අස්වැන්නක් බලමු. ඒකට අපි මිලකුත් දීලා තියෙනවා. මේ ප්‍රදේශයට එන ජලයත් රඳා පවතින එක වැඩි කරන්න අපි බලනවා. කූනරීන් වැව හදන්න යනවා. ඉරණ මඩු වැව දැන් තව අපිට උස් කරන්න පුළුවන්. අවුරුදු 4කට ඉස්සෙල්ලා මෛත්‍රීපාල මහත්තයා ජනාධිපතිට කාලේ බැලුවා. අපි බල සම්පූර්ණ වාර්තාවක් මම අර ගන්නවා. වතුර වැඩි කරන්න. අපි යාපනයේ දිනු කරමු නේද? දැන් ලංකාවට ආපහු කැම දෙන්න.
Subsequently, the President visited paddy fields of Pamankhandi Kilinochchi and addressed some concerns of the farming community in the region.
මීට වඩා නිෂ්පාදනය කරනවා. පැසින් පොර නැති එක දැන් කාලේ ඉවරයි. අපි දැන් පොර දෙනවා. ඊළඟට කෘෂිනාශක බේතුත් දෙනවා.
The Sri Lankan High Commissioner in New Delhi highlights the importance of a collaborative approach towards addressing a wide spectrum of issues, especially in the maritime domain. Addressing the defence advisors and attaches in New Delhi, concurrently accredited to Sri Lanka, High Commissioner Murugadola stressed the importance of engaging with friendly foreign countries to promote trade, investment and tourism as a means to revive the Sri Lankan economy.
Sri Lankan High Commissioner in New Delhi, Milinda Murugadola, recently met the defence advisors and attaches in New Delhi, concurrently accredited to Sri Lanka, for an interactive session. During the session, the Sri Lankan envoy briefed them of the salient pillars of the integrated country strategy, which has led the strategic working framework for the Sri Lanka diplomatic missions in India. Murugadola also emphasised the need to engage with friendly countries to promote trade, investment and tourism as a means to revive the Sri Lankan economy. Further, the High Commissioner also recalled the recently signed agreements between the two countries for the Colombo Maritime Rescue Coordination Centre, floating dock and the Doranian Maritime Patrol aircraft that are considered as important capacity and capability initiatives. High Commissioner Murugadola briefed the defence advisors on the strategic significance Sri Lanka holds in the Indian Ocean and highlighted some of the unique maritime security threats and challenges that Sri Lanka encounters in the Indian Ocean, and stressed the importance of having a collaborative approach towards addressing a wider spectrum of issues, especially in the maritime domain. Recalling the already established defence cooperation arrangements with some of the other friendly foreign countries, Murugadola noted the importance of identifying newfangled areas of cooperation with the assistance of the accredited defence advisors in sectors such as capacity and capability building as a means of expanding defence cooperation with Sri Lanka.
The 18 individuals arrested yesterday for engaging in protests violating a court order in Jaffna were released on surety bails earlier today. Meanwhile, at a media briefing today, Swastika Arulingam of the Alliance of Trade Unions and Mass Organizations disapproved of the President's use of the armed forces.
MP Selvaraja Kajendran and 17 others who were arrested yesterday for entering a high-security zone in Jaffna were released on bail earlier today. The Ahile Lanka Tamil Congress parliamentarian and others were taken into custody yesterday while engaging in a protest violating a court order. The court order was obtained by the police to prevent any disruption to the Independence Day celebrations held in Jaffna yesterday under the patronage of the President. The police stated that the surety bail was set at 300,000 rupees per person by the Jaffna magistrate. Meanwhile, reacting to the incident at a media briefing today, Swastika Arulingam of the Alliance of Trade Unions and Mass Organizations accused the incumbent president of using the armed forces for his personal benefit.
It was a peaceful protest. There was no violence. It was within the framework of the constitution. It was within the framework of the law. And still, the government used police and force to arrest and disperse of protests simply because it was against the president. Whether it be the north or whether it be the south, the president has been using the police and the military and the armed forces as his personal property to decorate his ego. So we see a pattern here. But we are gathered as a trade union and civil society organization, which is a movement which gathers in Colombo regularly. And we want to send a clear message to people in the north, but also people in the rest of the country, that the government may decide to oppress democratic spaces. But there is a people's movement forming which will stand in solidarity against government repression and government oppression. That is what we should focus on. We should focus on building solidarity between north and south, east and west, and the central province in order to fight the repressive regime.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa assures the general public that justice will be delivered to the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks under a government of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya. Addressing an election campaign rally in Vennappur, the opposition leader said his party has no deals with the other political parties except for that with the public.
An election campaign rally of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was held in Vennappur yesterday under the patronage of its party leader Sajith Premadasa.
මේ රටේ කතෝලික ප්‍රජාවට ක්‍රිස්තියානි ප්‍රජාවට එපමණක් නොවේ රටේ ලක්ෂ 220ටම මම පොරොන්දු වෙනවා පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයෙන් ඒ විපතට පත්වුණු ජනතාව බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන සත්‍ය අපේ රජයක් යටතේ අනිවාර්යෙන්ම ලබා දෙනවාමයි. සමහරු එක කට කතා යවනවා. ඕවා ඔහොම කිව්වට ඉතින් හැමදාම අවසානයේ දේශපාලන ඩීල් වලින් ඕවා ඔක්කොම බලයටපත් වුනහම අමතක වෙනවයි කියලා. මට තියෙන එක ඩීල් එකක්. ඒ ඩීල් එක ඔබලත් එක්ක තියෙන්නේ. ඒක සමාජ කිවිසුමක්. ඒ සමාජ කිවිසුම හරහා මේ ගරා වැටුණු දේශය අනිවාර්යෙන්ම අපි ගොඩ ගන්නවාමයි කියන එක මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. ඒ නිසා අපිත් එක්ක ඔය පොලිටිකල් ඩීල්, හොර මගඩි ඩීල්, ඔය කරපු වැරදි වැඩ වහගන්න ඩීල් ඒවා සමගි ජන බලවේගයත් එක්ක බෑ. වෙන ඕනම කෙනෙක් එක්ක ගිහිලා ගහගන්න ඩීල් අපිත් එක්ක ඒවා කරන්න බෑ. අනිවාර්යෙන්ම රට බංකොලොත් කරපු, රටේ සල්ලි හොරකම් කරපු සියලුම දෙනා නීතිය හමුවට ගෙනෙනවාමයි.
Leader of the National People's Power, Anura Kumara Disanayake, says their intention is not merely for a government but to develop the nation. Addressing an election campaign rally in Kegol, Disanayake said their political opponents are threatened by the political revolution that is to take place on the 9th of March.
An election campaign rally of the National People's Power was held in Kegol yesterday under the patronage of its party leader Anura Kumara Disanayake.
මේ ලැබෙන මාර්තු මාසේ 9 වෙනිදා රාජපක්ෂගෙන් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහට බලය මාරු වෙනවා නම් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහගෙන් රාජපක්ෂට බලය මාරු වෙනවා නම් එමෙත රනිල් රාජපක්ෂගෙන් සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාසට බලය මාරු වෙනවා නම් ඡන්දෙ තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මෙච්චර ඇඹරෙන්නේ ඇයි? ලංකා ඉතිහාසයේ විශාලතම දේශපාලන හැරවුම මේ මාර්තු මාසේ 9 වෙනිදා සිද්ධ වෙන බව හැම කෙනාම දන්නවා. ඉතින් ඒකට බයයි. තව දින කීපයයි තියෙන්නේ. සතුරා හොඳටම කලබල වෙලා. කුඩා හෝ අතපසුවීමක් හොයමින් ඉන්නවා. ඒ නිසා කිසිදු අතපසුවීමකට ඉඩ නොදෙන්න අපේ අපේක්ෂක සහෝදරවරු සහ සහෝදරියන් කෙරෙහි අපිට විශාල විශ්වාසයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ විදිහට කටයුතු කරයි කියලා අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ජාතික ජන බලවේගයේ මේ සටනට අවතීර්ණ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. නිකන් ආණ්ඩුවක් හදන්න, නිකන් මූණු මාරු කරන්න නෙවෙයි මේ රට හදන්න. අපි ඔයගොල්ලන්ට සහතිකයක් දෙනවා. දෙන්න බලය හදනවා මේ රට.
Parliamentarian of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Rohitha Abegunawardena, says he is confident that his party will claim a historic victory at the upcoming local government polls. He made this comment while addressing a public gathering in Kalutara.
A public gathering of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna was held last evening under the patronage of its district leaders.
මේ රට විනාශ කරපු දෙගොල්ලක් ඉන්නවා. එකක් තමයි අනුර දිසානායකගේ පක්ෂය. අනිත් එක තමයි ප්‍රභාකරන්. පීඩිත පන්තිවල නියෝජනය කරන්නේ. සාක්කු දෙකේ තමයි අත් දෙක ගහගෙන තියෙන්නේ. සාක්කු අත ගහගෙන ඉන්නේ හැවෙලේම ධනවාදියයි. අපිට පුළුවන්කම තියෙනවා හරවුම් ලක්ෂයක් ඇති කරලා ශ්‍රී ලංකා පොදුජන පෙරමුණ ඓතිහාසික ජයග්‍රහණයක් අපි වාර්තා කරන්න අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු ටික සූදානම් කරන්න.
And we take you to business news. In the latest addition to airport infrastructure at the Jaffna International Airport, a duty-free shopping complex was opened this morning with the promise of further expansion to Sri Lanka's third international airport. The chairman of Airport and Aviation Services, Major General G.A. Chandrasiri, said the airport in Palale will be further expanded with added services. Flight operations are also to increase in the near future.
A duty-free shopping complex at Sri Lanka's third international airport in Palali, Jaffna was declared open under the patronage of Chairman of the Airport and Aviation Services Lanka Limited, Major General G.A. Chandrasiri, this morning. Speaking to media, the Airport and Aviation Services Chairman said more developments are expected to take place at the Jaffna International Airport in the near future.
Yet another improvement that we are doing for Palali Airport for the passengers. We are quite happy to see that the Alliance here, they have scheduled flights here, 4 flights per week. I was told that in time to come, there will be 7 flights per week from Alliance here. Not only that, from here, there will be another domestic flight by Alliance here to go to Ratmalana as well. So those are the improvements that we are planning to do in future. So coincide with that, we need to do more improvement as far as the commercial and commercial side also concerned. So thinking on those lines, we have started the duty-free shops today and with the approval of the government. And we are planning to have more duty-free shops coming here to this airport. We are thinking of getting the cosmetic items, then other various items like shoes, the handbags, this type of areas also, and the electronic items. We are thinking of improving the duty-free shop in that area. Over and above that, we are planning to extend this airport to give more facilities to the passengers. Very soon, there will be an extended lobby here where the passengers can comfortably come and stay here and depart with the normal procedures. And outside also, arrival area, we are thinking on the same line, we are going to give them more facilities. Those things will come in time to come. We are planning to have a taxi service in time to come. We are planning to have some lot of improvement around this airport area.
In business in international news, the Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says that G20 economies are deliberating on potential regulations pertaining to cryptocurrencies. The Finance Minister's comments follow Prime Minister Modi's remarks on the matter last year, where he urged governments worldwide that a collective global effort is needed to deal with problems posed by cryptocurrencies.
Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said yesterday that the Group of 20 economies is exploring whether the group could collectively regulate cryptocurrencies. Sitharaman, whose country is this year's G20 president, said that given the sophisticated technologies involved with these virtual assets, countries must discuss whether regulation is needed. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government has for several years debated drafting a law to regulate or even ban cryptocurrencies, but has not made a final decision. Sitharaman told reporters after meeting the central bank directors in New Delhi that they are talking to all nations and that if it requires regulation, one country alone cannot do anything. Furthermore, Sitharaman stated that talks are underway internationally to see if some standard operating procedure, which is followed by everyone to make a regulatory framework, can be developed and if it can be effective. India will host G20 finance ministers and central bank governors this month. Last year, Modi has stated that a collective global effort is needed to deal with problems posed by cryptocurrencies. The Reserve Bank of India has stated that cryptocurrencies should be banned as they are akin to a Ponzi scheme.
The US government posted a $39 billion budget deficit for January after a $119 billion monthly surplus a year earlier, as revenues dipped and one-time costs, including the bailout of a union pension fund, pushed outlays sharply higher. Meanwhile, Republicans in Congress are still demanding spending cuts as the debate on raising the federal debt limit rages on.
The report outlining the US government's $39 billion deficit in January comes as the Treasury employs extraordinary cash management measures to avoid breaching the federal debt limit. Outside of the one-time costs, the budget data did not show major shifts from the recent trends of slightly slowing revenues and rising costs for Medicare, Social Security, and interest on public debt. The Treasury has said its ability to pay US obligations may not last beyond early June unless Congress raises the $31.4 trillion statutory debt limit. Republicans want spending concessions from President Joe Biden, who has said he will not negotiate over raising the limit. US federal outlays in January were $486 billion, up 4% from a year earlier, due in part to Biden's $36 billion bailout of Central States Pension Fund to prevent cuts to the pensions of over 350 Teamsters union workers and retirees that it serves. Social Security costs in January rose 12% compared to a year earlier, reaching $114 billion due to cost of living adjustments. Interest on public debt rose 18%, reaching $51 billion in January.
And that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9. Be sure to sign in and subscribe to our social media sites for the very latest. I'm Indivri Amuatta. Good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.